Hello, everybody. Happy Women's History Month. This is Kathleen Burns Kingsbury, and I am doing a special LinkedIn or Facebook Live, depending on what platform you're on, for Women's History Month. It's going to be every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for about 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how long I want to chat about the topic. And today's topic, besides it being Women's History Month, is we're going to talk about why well behaved women seldom make history. One of my favorite topics. But for those of you who don't know what Women's History Month, let me just tell you real quick. It is every March, and the idea behind Women's History Month is it is actually a national celebration of women who have made history in the past and also what people are going to be doing in the future. You may ask yourself, why do we need a Women's History Month? Well, maybe not surprising. Women and their accomplishments have long been left out of history. Women of all types. So you have women's history where people left out stories of women of color, of women of all different races, and it really has it's been a problem for a really long time. Now, I'm giggling not because it's funny. I'm giggling because I remember the first time I learned about Women's History Month. Literally, it had to be like 20 years ago. And it was like, really? We have a Women's History Month? And then it was like, wait a second. Women have been left out of history. It's not in the books. All these accomplishments that women have done. So for me, 20 years ago, it was eye opening. For you today, it might not be as eye opening, but if you are out there and you didn't know about Women's History Month, do me a favor, Google it. And a lot will come up around women in history. You can certainly go to the Smithsonian and look at different stories of women in history. There's just a ton of information out there. But today, I want to focus in on an area that's especially near and dear to my heart. And that is that saying that we often hear that well behaved women rarely or seldom, depending on how it's quoted, make history. So I did a little Googling myself, and let me make sure I get this right. In 1976, there was a scholarly article about little studied Puritan funeral services. And Laurel Thacker Ulrich, she's a historian specializing in women's history, included the phrase, well behaved women seldom make history. Now, in its original iteration, uh, Ulrich was not meaning to say that well behaved women should act out in order to make history, but as you can imagine, since 1976, that quote has been used in different ways, in different forms. And today, I am going to say that many women out there, especially the women that I coach, the women that I train, you need to be a little less well behaved. But that was where the original quote came from. Now, if you are well behaved, that means you are compliant, you are nice, you are somebody who is not going to maybe do some of the things I'm going to suggest you do. Now, one thing to know today, I am not recommending that you act out, that you're unprofessional, that you run into your boss's office and demand a raise, or that you start a new business and charge exorbitant fees. That is not what I am talking about today. But what I am talking about is that often what's happening is women need to get to a place where they're not going to listen to the idea that if you're nice and you're compliant and you work really hard, that you will be rewarded with more income, more compensation. People will see your value. That is a myth. It is a myth that I think, and I can't speak for all men out there, but I think it's a myth that a lot of men know they have to prove their value. They may have different roadblocks to overcome than women, but I think a lot of us, especially people from my generation, which is Gen X, we were really told that if we just pay our dues, if we just work really hard, that eventually someone will say, yep, you deserve a new title. Yes, you deserve a raise. Oh, you're starting a new business? I know you only want to charge $100 an hour, but I'm going to give you $200 an hour. That is not how it works. So today, before I get into the tips that I'm going to offer you on how to be professional, yet not well behaved in order to get ahead, because I really want you to be able to break money silence on negotiating. I want you to be able to ask for your value, to get what you're paid for. Part of women making history going forward is that we have a seat at the table. And in order for us to get a seat at the table, we have to express our value. We have to go after those top jobs. We have to start businesses that make a difference. Now, we are doing that, but I'm just saying we can't be just well behaved sitting in a corner if we are going to make a difference. And eventually, maybe there won't be a Women's History Month. There'll just be history. Wouldn't that be great? Okay. So, why am I so passionate about this? Why is this such a thing for me about being well behaved? Well, I have to tell you, there's a couple of come up for me. One is I can remember at one point I was in coaching, business coaching, and my coach at the time said, "Why do you smile every time you say you're in trouble?" And I do. I'll be like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." And then I'll kind of giggle. And so there's a part of me, just from a personality standpoint, I was born with a voice. I was born and I had a lot to say. For better or for worse, I had strong opinions. And so I truly believe if I was a man, maybe this would have been encouraged. Maybe they said, how smart, what a go getter. But as a woman, and my parents being the parents that they were of their time, they didn't do this consciously, but I was always squashed to like be a little quieter. Don't speak up so much. In fact, in my book, Breaking Money Silence, How to Shatter Money Taboos, Talk More Openly About Finance and Live a Richer Life. There's a full title. In that book, I open with a story about being a young girl being called the mouth by my father. Now, my father and I had a great relationship. And it wasn't so much later that I realized being called the mouth isn't really a very positive thing. But I think what he was trying to do, being a traditionalist, being a naval captain, being somebody that was married to my mother who very much wanted me to be quieter, that I think what he was trying to do is make fun of the fact that I had a lot to say. So that opening story about being called the mouth at the time, I didn't think much of it. But as I grew and as I became a professional woman and as I tried to use my voice in the world, both personally and professionally, I came to realize that being called the mouth was something that was not helpful, that it squashed my voice. And you know what? My voice is my voice. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's sarcastic. Sometimes, and I always apologize, it isn't so nice. And I say, I'm sorry. My goal is to use my voice to speak up and to be professional about it. Now, when I talk about not being well behaved, what I'm talking about is using your voice. Whether you are a leader, whether you're a woman starting her own business or building her business, whether you're an employee, someone looking to apply for a new job, that as women, we need to use our mouths. We need to speak up. We need to make history. And in order to make history and change history, we need to use our voice. So I'm going to be a mouth or mouthy, also not a great compliment. And I'm going to use my voice to tell you why I think you need to take these actions. And again, this isn't to be not professional. This isn't, yelling at work. This isn't demanding things. This is about being an emotionally intelligent, professional woman speaking up, using her voice, and saying something that is going to support you or your organization and help you close the gender wage gap and get us gender parity in the business world. So my intent is pure. I'm asking you to act out, but act out in responsible ways. And to do so with the idea in mind, what you're doing is you're role modeling for the next generation how to speak up, how to use your voice, how to do something different than I think many of us were taught to do when we were young, and ask for what you're worth or ask for that action. So when I thought about not being well behaved, I thought to myself, okay, when I was a young girl, I was told that I should be quiet. I was a little bit too rambunctious. And I just think they didn't know what to do with me. My personality persisted and I used my voice more effectively. Then I entered the business world. At first, I was compliant. I did what I thought I should do. I got the government job. I moved up the corporate ladder. And then I realized this is not fulfilling for me. I need to use my voice to make a difference in the financial industry, not to be in the role that I was in, which was an auditor. And so then I founded KBK Wealth Connection and was able to use my voice to help women change their behaviors around money, to change their behaviors around negotiating, to really empower other people as well as myself to misbehave in a professional way. So, here are the tips that I want you to think about today as we start this celebration of Women's History Month. And you may not be able to do all three. That is okay. Pick one and try it. Or if you're listening to me right now and you're saying, you know what, misbehaving is not the way to go, then let me know. Put it in the chat. I'm more than happy for us to have a conversation about it because I think conversation, also speaking up, using your voice, not being silent, is a way of misbehaving in a positive way. Okay, so here we go. The first way in which I think you should use your voice and misbehave is by blurting. Yes, I want you to blurt. What's a blurt? That's speaking up without a lot of intention in the moment. Now, sometimes it would be good to have some intention, but sometimes we overthink things. So I'm thinking of a time where I was newer to business. I was starting to train bankers. And I can remember I was sitting there at a networking event. I had a girlfriend with me, and her husband happened to be a banker, and he was attending the networking event. And we were all talking about, different problems in communication and what he thought his staff needed to learn. And then he started to talk a little bit about one particular branch manager who was a problem. She probably was misbehaving too. And he started speaking about her. And I thought, oh, wait a second. I think I get this woman. I kind of understand where she's coming from. And then what I did was I blurted before I even thought, am I qualified to do this? Does it make sense to do this? I blurted out, I can help her. And the whole table just turned and looked at me. And I remember thinking, I've said it. And he goes, you think you can help her? And I said, I do. So we set up a meeting for the next week. I went in, I was hired as an external coach, and I worked with this woman. And you know what? She got to keep her job at the bank. She was a little bit of a misbehavior. I helped her misbehave in a more effective way, and I got to coach her. That all came from me being in the moment, blurting out that I was qualified. Now, your situation may be very different. You may be sitting at a conference table or on a Zoom call, and you're in a meeting with leadership, and you're usually quiet and you don't say anything. It may be that in every meeting you decide, I'm going to blurt out once. Now, I'm not talking about talking over people. It's a bad habit I have. I'm talking about blurting out, having an opinion, saying something. Because research shows if women speak up at those meetings, they are more likely to get noticed and get respect than those that are quiet. Again, misbehaving in a professional way seems to really pay off. So I want you to consider, where in my life could I blurt, and make a commitment to blurt however you see fit. I would love to hear how you blurt. I would love to hear the stories. I would love to hear that it worked. If there's a situation that it didn't, you can always let me know. You can always reach me at kbk@breakingmoneysilence.com, or you can go to my website and check out all the things that are there at breakingmoneysilence.com. Some of these tips and tools. But think about it. Blurt. The next one, this is going to be hard for some of you, is in addition to blurting, I want you to brag. Yes. I know bragging has a bad connotation, right? Oh, she's so full of herself. He's so arrogant. The women that I work with and the men that I coach, that I train, the ones that worry the most about bragging are the ones that, if they bragged, would never come across as arrogant or full of themselves. They are the ones that need to learn to speak up, to communicate their value, to be able to express their value to others. Self-promotion is an art. We all know that person who does it in a salesy, yucky way. No, we don't want to do that. But self-promotion and bragging is something that you need to do. Whether you own your own business, whether you work in a company, and many Many women, not all women, but many women really struggle in this area. We have been socialized to be kind, to be nice, to not speak up, and self promotion feels icky. Well, promotion, if you can reframe it, is really letting other people know the services that you have to provide, the value and the unique qualifications that you have. And you're actually doing them a service by letting them know. Suppose somebody's having a trouble with their relationship with money. Suppose it's not a financial thing. It's not like they don't know how to do math or they can't figure out how to open a banking account. Maybe it's that they just want to ask for a raise or they want to have a conversation with their partner about a state and it just feels uncomfortable. If they didn't know the value that my company can provide and the fact that I can help teach them how to tap into their money mindset and how to have that conversation and how to support them through that process, wouldn't I be doing a disservice to them as opposed to saying, oh, well, I don't want to brag about my skills. I don't want to brag about my qualifications. So I encourage you to think about moments where you can brag because bragging is communicating your value. Where can I let people know what I do? And offer a story, show them the value that you provide, and do it in a way that is emotionally intelligent, that isn't like a bull in a china shop, that isn't cheesy salesman or saleswoman, because there are both. But brag. It is an art. It is something that women need to get better at in general. And along with blurting, speaking up, bragging is second. So, because I love alliteration, I sat here for a little while before the LinkedIn Live and I thought, what is my third B? What my third tip was going to be, but I couldn't figure out what my third B was, but I came up with it. So, in addition to blurting and bragging, you need to be bold. I want you to be bold. What do I mean by that? I want you to, I want you to, let me think of an example. I want you to apply for that job that you go, oh, I'm not qualified. You'll never know if you're qualified unless you're bold and you apply for the job. I want you to go promotion. I want you to think about if you really want to start that new business, if you really want to learn to negotiate, if you really want to do something that you've never done before, take up a new sport, I want you to be bold and I want you to do it because well behaved women seldom make history. And if each and every one of us are so well behaved that we don't speak up, that we don't ask for a worth, that we don't brag, that we don't blurt, that we're not bold, then it's going to continue to be a situation where in the world, women aren't going to get the notice or the kudos that we deserve. Now, one comment about men out there. I am not anti-man. I am not, I'm happy and open to however you identify. But the female experience, especially for cisgender females, has been one that is one that I've experienced. It's one that I speak to. And so I want to be respectful. So wherever else you are in this continuum, if these tips are helpful for you, go for it. If you are a male advocate, especially a white male advocate in the business world, I want you to think about how can you teach or mentor or sponsor women who blurt, who are brag, and who are bold. Because these are the women that are going to change your industry, are going to change your business, or going to change your life. These are the women that I like to hang out with. In fact, there's 3 or 4 that come to mind right now that have all of these qualities. So, as we open Women's History Month, and as we think about why we haven't celebrated women in the past, why their stories have gone untold, I want you to think about how you can make history going forward. One of the things you'll notice in all these stories about women who made history is chances are they blurted, chances are they bragged a little, and they were bold. And so, if you want to learn a little bit more about how to speak up, how to ask for what you're worth, how to negotiate what you're worth, or how to feel more comfortable with money, I encourage you to check out my free course on breaking money silence on negotiation. I have put on, um, let me just type in the URL for you. So it's breaking, hang on, multitasking is hard, moneysilence.com/negotiating hyphen for hyphen free. Put that out there for you. Hopefully it shows up. We'll put it on the screen. And you want to check out that course. I have other courses as well. I have a masterclass starting if you want a little time with me. In either way, whether you want to work on negotiation, whether you want to apply for a job, whether you want to make peace with money, or whether you just want to celebrate Women's History Month, I hope that these three tips are useful. So blurt, brag, and be bold. And I will see you next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll continue to celebrate Women's History Month and how we all can support women and how you can support yourself in asking and getting paid what you deserve and changing the world for the better for the next generation. This is Kathleen Burns Kingsbury saying thank you for attending this live or watching it later. Ping me with any questions or comments. I look forward to connecting. Have a great day.